Hello, viewer. Today I'm going to cover a very important topic, which is sustainability, and a very important standard, which is ISO 14001 Environment Management System. What's the correlation between the two topics, and how basically the ISO 14001 contributes to the concept of sustainability? So, in case you know me, you can skip the next 30 seconds to get right to the topic. This is Sayed Arshad Hashmi from Core System Consultant. By profession, I'm an engineer with extensive experience as consultant, trainer, and auditor for many ISO standards, including information security, business continuity, energy, quality, environment, health, and safety management standards. I've done more than 3,000 mandates of trainings and audits, and I've worked on more than 150 consulting projects with major industrial sectors across the globe. So that was a brief about myself, and now let's get started. So let's start. I'll take you to the basic concepts of the sustainability. What is the core idea behind the concept of sustainability, and then the overall theme of the ISO 14001 and how it contributes to the concept of sustainability. So to understand sustainability, we need to understand that the human dependency is heavily on the natural resources which are provided by the nature through the earth, the globe that we live in. And one of the major resources, of course, the water. And then there are other resources, like, for example, the ability of the earth to grow crops. And then, of course, the plant and the trees itself, the wood that we acquire, the minerals that we get. And that is what the Mother Nature is all comprised of. That is what is our earth is all comprised of. And if we may impact those ability of the nature to regenerate those um, resources for the mankind, then that will create an imbalance and that will question the viability of the mankind on this planet. So, with that understanding, we also need to understand that we cannot live without consuming those resources, but we need to maintain it in a manner that we need to let the Mother Nature to regenerate those resources, and we keep on consuming them. And besides that, we need to make sure that we may not be impacting the ability of the Mother Nature to regenerate those resources. So the easy way to understand is that the way we are going to consume the resources is that the resource consumption should be less than the resource regeneration process. So in a nutshell, that's how we define the sustainability concept. By definition, the way we define it is that to maintain the resources for the present and use it in a manner that it may sustain for the future generations so that they can meet their own needs and requirements. With this concept, and the whole sustainability concept is dependent on some core ideas. The main core idea is that human and mankind and the mother nature, they're dependent on each other. And in fact, we are heavily dependent. So whatever is the natural environment out there, our existence is basically dependent on that. And so it calls for the creating conditions where humans and nature can exist in a productive harmony. So we need to make sure that when we are consuming those resources, we may not be impacting the ability of the mother nature to reproduce those resources. And that is what we try to achieve through the concept of sustainability. So again, as I explained to you in a nutshell, the resource consumption should be less than resource regeneration, with another element to it, that we may not impact the ability of the planet, of the mother nature, to regenerate those resources. So that is the overall concept of the sustainability. And there are a lot of standards which supports the concept of sustainability. As you can see, ISO 14001 is one of them. Otherwise, we have energy management, greenhouse gas management, social responsibility, and other ISO standards, sustainable procurement, and there is another standard which is ISO 14046, which is water footprinting as well. So there are a number of ISO standards available, but for this particular video, I will be focusing on the ISO 14001 environment management system. Again, before I dive into the management system key elements, let's understand few of the environmental issues that are present out there. And I'm sure you must be aware of these terminologies before. So let me just quickly brief about that before I touch base on the 14,001 and how it may impact or help us in managing those environmental issues. So the first one is global warming. I believe everyone is aware that how the global warming is impacting us in totality and this whole planet. But what it is caused by is the fact that after the industrialization, the emissions, especially the emissions which contains the oxides of nitrogen and carbon and methane and other, which we termed as greenhouse gases, basically. So those emissions, the major portion is because of the industrial emissions. They produce greenhouse gases, and the ability of the greenhouse gases is to trap the heat and re-emit it towards the earth crust. Now that raises the temperature of the earth, which impact the ability, the agricultural ability of the earth. Plus, it also melts the glaciers which are present towards the poles, which is causing the water level to rise, which is basically creating an imbalance in the planet. So there's global warming phenomena. This is very well known by a lot of people, and of course I'll come back to it. But that is how we explain the global warming phenomena. The second environmental issue is the depletion of the ozone layer. Again, I'm sure most of you must have heard the term ozone layer before. It is the upper atmosphere, which is called a stratosphere, and that atmosphere basically keeps the earth and the human and the marine life safe from lot of ultraviolet radiations which comes directly from the sun, and they are very harmful for the human, for the mankind, for the other species, for the plants, and the earth crust itself, and of course the marine life out there. And again, this depletion of the ozone layer is happening because of the presence of a lot of greenhouse gases and other emissions that are industrial emissions. And I'm going to highlight it as I move on. So, ozone and the depletion of the ozone layer is one of the other environmental issues that the world is interacting at this point. Then, loss of biodiversity. Now, to understand the concept of biodiversity, you need to understand that every living organism on this planet has a contribution to make towards the environment. Like, for example, if you take the example of the plant, as we all know that they absorb carbon dioxide and emit oxygen during the day, and so are other elements of this earth crust. So whatever the marine life is, they have a contribution to make, and all the other species, plants, every species that is out there, which is part of the ecosystem, they are there to contribute to the existence of this earth and for the mankind. And if we damage, if our activities may cause the non-existence of these species, that will create the imbalance. So we need to understand that every species on this earth is important in order for us to survive. So eventually they are working for us when they are maintaining the mother nature out there, when they're maintaining the planet and they're contributing to the environment. Some of the other environmental issues cause air pollution, as I've already discussed, the industrial gases, which may also cause the vehicle emissions. And the biggest source of the emissions is the fossil fuel burning. So all of our dependency on the power sector is basically on the fossil fuel burning, and that causes a lot of air emissions. And then the vehicles out there and all the transportation industry, all the construction industry that is run because of the fossil fuel burning. So we acquire the power through that, and that contributes to the air pollution, which of course lead back to the other issues that I just showed you regarding the ozone depletion, regarding the global warming phenomena. Similarly, the water pollution, as the name implies. So the biggest sources are the industrial discharges that is going out there, oil spills, plastic pollution, and other resources. And again, they heavily impact the concept of the biodiversity, which is the marine life that is out there, that is heavily impacted through that. Again, The same water is absorbed by the crops that we grow and the agricultural ability. So that also impact, and eventually that also impact the life of the human as well. Then we have the land pollution, and again the major contributor to the land pollution are the industrial activities. A lot of the solid waste, metal waste, plastics, and even the consumer activity. So the turnaround with the consumerism, the evolution of the consumerism, that has also caused a lot of generation of the plastics and a lot of waste, the in terms of the paper and the packaging and the metal and the plastics. So all of this contributes to the environmental issues. And again, the management of those industrial waste plays an important role, or the non-management or the improper management impacts the environmental quality out there. So these are all the issues, and all these issues are well addressed through the ISO 14001 environment management system. Now, this is the overall structure of the standard, and which is out of the scope of my today's video. But nevertheless, the overall theme of the standard is based on aspect impact analysis. So we need to understand that there are industries out there, and every industry has an activity which is interacting with the environment. So there are aspects which may be impacting the environment. So we need to evaluate every industry with respect to those aspects which may be impacting the environment. So there are different type of industries out there, and all these different type of industries are impacting the normal people life and the community at large. And then if you evaluate, so 14001 asks you to evaluate the industry, any type of industry that you are in, with respect to the nuisance, vibration, noise, smoke, dust. So what is out there, how it is impacting, how you are interacting with the environment, how you are impacting the environment basically, with respect to your spillage, your liquid effluents, the visual pollution, land contamination, sewage contamination, and all of that. So we need to evaluate the aspects which may be impacting the environment in terms of nuisance, spillage, in terms of air emissions, which may be impacting the global warming and the ozone depletion, and then also in terms of waste management, that how that industry is doing the management of their waste, and maybe causing the land pollution or the water pollution. And largely, every industry is dependent on the consumption of the resources. So the natural resources, in terms of the power that they're using, in terms of the gas, in terms of water usage. So all that consumption of resources, um, 14001 helps you identify all those aspects, and then how they are impacting the environment. And then what 14001 also asks to consider the legal and regulatory requirements, and then allow, in line with that, ask you to manage the significant aspect which may be impacting the environment. So basically, between the community, between the residents, between the people, this is where the 14001 kicks in as an environment management system. And overall, it covers the all the activities of the industry and find out which are the significant ones, and then place controls on that to protect the community and protect the environment. So if you belong to any type of industry, categorically you need to consider the input to that industry and what are the aspects that may be related to those inputs, in terms of the raw material, in terms of any services that you're acquiring, and then the emissions that are coming out of that industry, the solid and liquid products that is coming out of that industry, and then the consumption of resources that is related to that industry. So what happens is that once we do that, the overall concept again is that we control the interaction with the environment to make it sustainable for the generations to come. So that is the overall concept, that how we consider all of those aspects related to the inputs and the outputs out of that industry, and we place controls towards a significant aspect. And that is the overall theme of the ISO 14001 environment management system. So that is how it contributes to the concept of sustainability. So I hope this little presentation must have helped you in understanding the basic concept of the sustainability, and also the overall theme of the 14001 standard. Hopefully, in my next video, I'll be covering details about the 14,001 standard, the structure of the standard, and different key elements of the 14,001 standard. Till then, thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you will come back again to watch the next video. Thank you.